My Family Thinks I'm Crazy, a podcast where I, your host, try to give you some tips on how you can explain all this weird, wild, crazy conspiracy stuff to the people you love most. Because that's what I've been trying to do for the past 10 years with no success.
I've been telling everybody that our government is shady, but every time I do, my family thinks I'm crazy. The hollow earth, UFOs, aliens invading, fluoride in the water, they spray our skies daily. When I talk about these things, they think I'm crazy. There's no escaping anymore the evil that we're facing. Illuminati, mind control, they're sacrificing babies. The end of days, but anyways, my family thinks I'm crazy.
What, they don't want to listen to you?
No, they don't want to listen. They don't want to hear it. They're just like, oh, here we go, Mark. Off again with your...
Mark being Mark again.
Yeah. So, that's the thing about podcasts is when you're on the air, and it's like therapy, If I can't talk to my family about this stuff, I'll talk to you, Matt, and all our listeners.
You always start your whole podcast.
Yeah. So who are we talking about today, Matt?
They think that I'm crazy. They really think that I'm crazy. They really think that I'm crazy. My family thinks that I'm crazy.
Do you read me, Hal? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
They run gravity amplifiers. There's actually two parts to the drive mechanism. It's a bizarre technology. There's no physical hookup between any of the systems in there. They use gravity as a wave, using waveguides, almost like microwaves. But certainly these crafts came from another, not just another planet, another solar system entirely, extremely far away, and they're here.
Over here, up there, I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river. It wasn't a helicopter, it wasn't a balloon, and it was so near.
It looked round, white,
just like
and silent.
Silent, and it looked dark, like black or grey in the middle, and had white lights, just looked like light bulbs, just going off, on, blink, 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 round the bottom, and on top was a red light.
When I was around 3, they said I got bit by a spider or something like that, a poisonous spider. So as I turn around and do that, I see a reptilian humanoid phase through the door and just staring at me from the foot of my bunk bed.
Roswell-style crashes and strange materials sent to a secret base in Nevada. But after she agreed to speak to us, she was visited by 2 agents.
Nope. The military now admits that they're not ours.
Power to walk into the gold vaults of the nations, into the secrets of kings, into the Holy of Holies. Power to make multitudes run, squealing in terror at the touch of my little invisible finger. Even the moon's frightened of me, frightened to death. The whole world's frightened to death.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast. I'm your host, Mark Palmer. Today's show, we take a weird, strange, and paranormal dive into the life of a man named Ron Weed. That's right, Ron hit me up on Instagram and he said, hey, Mark, I've had a alien experience. I've had a gray/reptilian contact experience. So I said, okay, that's interesting. Let's talk about it on the show. Not only that, but his father happened to be possibly working in classified departments of the military, the Navy SEALs. Shout out to all the veterans that listen to the show. Shout out to you, veterans. I know it's not Veterans Day, but shout out to you guys. Appreciate your service. Much respect. He broke down his experience, not only had his father had similar alien experiences, but Ron went on to have some interactions with possibly a Freemason that led him to decipher this Gematria code we spent some time talking about in the second half of the show. Thank you for listening to the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast, and shout out to all our patrons supporting us. And if Patreon's not your thing, shout out to Matt Black. He hit me up. He said, "Hey, brother, I'm going to give you $1 for every episode that I've listened to. I've listened to 100 episodes, so I'm going to send you $100." I said, "Dude, I appreciate you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much." And we talked on the phone for a little bit today. And that was right after seeing another person who, I got to say, huge shout out to Rob B. Not only is he a big help in the Telegram, always inspiring, always dropping cool photos and information that's helped me understand this area better, but he hooked me up with some really, really kind gifts today. One of them that I will say is a silver dollar. Never owned a silver dollar before, but that's awesome. So thank you so much, brother. Appreciate that. And thank you for listening to the podcast. If you get something out of this podcast, don't hesitate to send some value back my way, because this is a value for value podcast. I cannot do it without your support. We do have some sponsors, but hey, they listen to the show too. Shout out to you. We got Audrey Lobdell. For all your tuning fork and Reiki needs, go to audreylobdell.com. And then Akasha Goods. 'Tis the season, folks. Go to akashagoods.com and up the vibes in your house, in your life. We've got all kinds of really cool products there for you to integrate into your practice, whatever that is, that keeps your positivity levels up. And speaking of positivity, I feel incredible when I go out on a hike in the forest. And if you like that and you want to maybe figure out another method on how you can up your game in that level, go and hit up our friend Fru. Check out Fru's Forest Baths. If you're not in her area, maybe you can even book a consultation. We don't know, but they sponsor the show, so shout out to them. And shout out to all our patrons. If you sign up, you'll get a spirit animal name. Got no new spirit animal names, but we are going to give a spirit animal name to Matt Black and Rob B in the outro of this episode. So stick around to the end and find out what those are. And to everyone else listening, thank you so much for being here, folks. Have a happy holidays. I don't know what holiday you celebrate, but I hope it's amazing. I know this episode will be coming out around a really important holiday for my family. Even though I'm not exactly Christian, I really do love the tradition of getting together. I think it's an important thing, no matter what umbrella it falls under. So either way, I hope your holiday season is awesome. And if you have some time, check out the Patreon, check out the Rockfin, check out the website. We've got stuff for sale there, things that Tara and I have made ourselves. So really hope you check that out and continue supporting this awesome show, and I'll continue doing it. Until next time, or until the outro, enjoy this conversation with Ron Weed.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
All right, brother. Well, let's get started. We are recording. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast. With me for the first time is a gentleman who reached out to me and said, "Hey, not only do I have a bunch of awesome theories I want to share with you, but I've also contacted Greys and Reptilians." So I was blown away, very interested, tried to hide it, didn't want him to think I was coming on too strong, but here we are, united at last. Ron Weed, welcome to the show, brother. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Appreciate that.
No problem. Appreciate you being here and sharing your story with us today, brother. I want to, thank you again for reaching out, and also, give the listeners an opportunity to understand your story. So if you could maybe take us back to that first experience, or maybe start with like what first woke you up when you were a kid, a teenager, whenever it happened to you. What really got this journey started for you?
It was actually my first ever thought. Do you remember your first thought as a kid?
I remember my first like visual memory, like the oldest visual memory I have, but my first thought, no, I can't place that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I've heard some people say they don't remember things until they're like 4 or 5 years old, and I've heard people say they remember things from when they were inside of the crib,
right,
and stuff. And my first ever, like, my conscious awareness is like kind of supernatural, I guess. It's kind of like an incarnation experience, but basically, I kind of had, like, because I talked about it the other night, I kind of had do kind of remember, because as I was going through it, sorry, I guess I messed it up.
So no, you're good. We got time.
I'll just do it because I'm trying to explore it a little bit more too with stuff I've learned. But for some reason, it kind of was like a fantasy kind of seeming, like for whatever reason, like I kind of, and you know how there's false memories and things like that.
Of course, yeah.
Look in too much, because then you're messing with it. So it's with my experience and everything like that, I held on to the things that stuck, with memories. I can't remember certain things, but if you ask me about a really deep experience in my life, I could tell it with so many different details and look at it with different angles and hindsight and stuff like that.
Wonderful.
But I do kind of, for some reason, it was like a small shack house and a fence, and the hole was kind of like near, or either it was the well or maybe it was the well. It was either near the well or was the well.
Hole.
And I'm getting in it, and I remember looking up, like the part I do that really I could hold on to the memories. I'm looking up, and there's this lady, and she's holding my hand, and she's like a silhouette of color. You can't like a oil, how like when you see oil on top of water, it has that weird,
that like multicolor slick kind of look.
Multicolor slick. And she's saying something like, it's going to be a while, or it's not going to be a long time. This is going to be like, I'll see you soon. It's no big deal, really.
Yeah. And
so either she lets go or I let go, and I start falling. And this, to describe it, what it looks like when I'm inside the hole is like, and I thought about it the last, how there's the old cathedral domes. It's like this big dome, and then it has like one hole at the top for the light to come through.
That's what this looked like.
Yeah, kind of like that, but except you're at the very top, right at the top of the hole, and everything around me looks like it's like lights, different, just kind of, it looks like you're in space, like there's just different colored lights and things like that everywhere. And as I'm falling, it looks like how you're going warp speed, or like in that movie Contact. And so as I'm falling, right, and it feels like you're going down like those water slides, because I'm falling vertically, feet first, and I'm like looking, and I do have hands because I do remember that. I'm like, I see and I'm like trying to hold on to the memories that I had, and as I'm doing that, the memories are getting stripped away from you, kind of like you have, like when you're on tripping, you have this big deep thought and stuff like that, and it's just like you go to tell someone, it's like, what was it? You don't even know where to start on what you even thought about. So it's like, it feels like that. And I start falling really, really fast at that point. And then without closing my eyes, right? My eyes are still open as I'm falling. But the next, I guess, conscious thought was me opening my eyes inside of my body. And I'm laying down on a couch. And now I'm 4 years old. I'm a 4-year-old, boy. And I open my eyes, and I'm looking up at the ceiling, and then I jump up real quick, and I look to my right, and I go, you're my brother and you're my cousin. Because we were at that moment, I guess we were taking turns jumping over this couch, this red and white striped couch. And they're like, of course we are. Like, who else would we be? You're like, get off the couch. It's our turn. And so I run up, and I kind of do remember, like, my older brother kind of like checking my head. Maybe I knocked myself out. or whatever, had an out of body experience or something like that. Or it's hard to say. Like, when I was a kid, I guess my nickname is Ron, because you have to you'd be like, Ron. And then I'm like, I'm like in a trance, like most of the time or whatever.
I snap you out of it. So you literally fell down the rabbit hole, it sounds like.
Down the rabbit hole.
But take me back to this first part, though. So was there a physical well in the yard that possibly you actually fell down and something happened in between that memory and the memory that you just described on the couch?
Oh, no, nothing like that. But I guess when I was around 3, they said I got bit by a spider or something like that, a poisonous spider. I had some issues with that. But that's kind of like, I don't want to, that's kind of I don't want to really go say that's 100% a memory, it's kind of, but there's kind of something that kind of calls out to me for some, it's kind of like a fantasy land, Valhalla, Thor type thing going on or something, it was just maybe in the heavens, they kind of, as above, so below, in a way, they kind of are humanized like that and maybe their world is more fantastical in a way.
Mm.
Or it could be interdimensional, entering that's how you enter the new dimension. Like they talk about how in the South Pole or something, there's that big hole or something like that. Maybe that's, but I think from my opinion, I think there's something important with the placement of the North Star. The North Star changes over time, but I feel like the North Star is kind of like the hatch to get out of, the universe is essentially this giant snow globe or something like that.
So quite possibly this is where this might come from, though, for you. Like seeing that as a kid, that puts that to mind, like, oh, maybe that's what I was experiencing on the astral realm. Like I went up to the dome and looked through the porthole.
Yeah.
Right on,
and,
man.
Yeah. So, but you just kind of go on through life. And from something I heard on, New York Patriot was telling me, he was saying something like, that's what like the Scarlet Horde does or something like that. She puts like as you're falling through that tunnel is when you're getting like programmed, I guess, because to enter this dimension or something like that, you have to be like programmed into it. And what is it? Attachments. I guess I had to have the detachments from wherever I was to have the attachments here that holds me in this realm, I guess.
Right. So you have early memories of possibly interacting with these other realms. When does this start to, bleed into what we might understand as like ordinary reality? When does it start affecting your actual life? Because you mentioned, Ron, you're kind of a daydreamer. Yeah. Clearly, your mind's in a lot of places. I can tell just from talking to you, you're thinking about a lot of things that I am. So I'm wondering, when did this really sort of kick off? At what age did you have like an experience that was like, whoa, I can't, that's undoubtedly weird, right? Like it's not just my imagination. Was there anything that stood out like that?
It was when I was about 12 years old. I had a deal with the devil type experience.
Right. And this is what you DM me about. So maybe if we could start from the beginning, when you said deal with the devil, is the devil these gray aliens or reptilians? How are they fitting into this equation?
I can only really kind of speak from a victim's perspective, but I feel like they were kind of like the ones kind of like doing the dirty work, coming down and getting me, because they wanted me to leave with them. Like they're like, come with us. But that goes into the whole thing. So, and it's funny, the coincidence with the green tint right here, that's kind of what I woke up to. So that's good for a visual, like kind of like the green screen, Yeah,
like I have a green light bulb up there. Sorry, it is a little odd compared to what most people have, but we're a little funky over here at the My Family Thinks I'm Funky podcast.
Oh yeah, and I feel like that's a big thing too with a lot of different things, because there's this one guy who talked about ATP light, like basically everything is green light because something with the way radiation or something like that comes down from the sun, and then the photosynthesis of light and something, everything is essentially green light. It's like a big green screen,
right?
So I woke up and everything was that green light, like the whole room and everything. And I can, to tell it, I'm on the top bunk bed.
And you woke up in the middle of the night, the daytime? What time was it? The whole room was dark except for this green tint?
It would have been nighttime because my brother and my two brothers were in the room with me.
Okay.
And so I'm on the top bunk. He's on the bottom. My older brother is on the bottom bunk. And across the room is my younger brother. And he's by the window. And the light isn't like, there's something weird that I thought about, but the light looks like it's coming from the window and shining from there. But when I wake up to it, I'm just like about 12. I don't really care enough, and you kind of wake up and you're like, oh, whatever. Just kind of go back to, there's some reason for this. Maybe there's something going on outside or whatever. It's not enough for me to care. So I try to go back to sleep, and then the light starts pulsing, but it pulses getting darker, pulses getting brighter. The light gets brighter like that. And, so I'm seeing it through my eyelids more. And so now I'm upset, and I'm like, people are sleeping. What the hell's going on? It's whatever, late at night. So I hop out of bed and I look at my brothers, and I'm like, kind of like, hey guys. But then as I'm looking at them, they look like they're in like a coma. Like they don't look like they were frozen, but they didn't look, you could tell they were like, still had life to them or whatever.
But they weren't like just asleep. They seemed more than asleep.
More than asleep, like very, very still.
Yeah.
And so I guess I would have noticed no breathing or something. Something just made me stand out. I was like, but at that moment, I'm still thinking logical. I'm like, this is weird, but something's going on. There's got to be some sort of logical explanation for this. So I go to finally see what's going on. I go to touch the blinds of the window. And as soon as I do, I get a jump scare of an alien in my mind. And like those old videos where you click, all of a sudden it's like, pow, like an alien. And, but it's like, it's like a vision that goes in my mind. And a new thing too, is I thought about, like, I could tell it was on the other side of the window because of when I got the vision, I could see the railings behind it and the little post.
Right.
So I could tell it was on the porch, but I never actually like pulled the blinds down and looked at it. But it was a gray alien, basically what you would think a gray alien looks like, big little bulbous head, but it was like a tiny one. And when that happened, I locked up. Like, you ever seen like goats kind of like faint? I fainted, I had problems with fainting too, because, stuff happened when I was a kid, but like I had a pet goat. And one day I came there, it was at my grandparents' house out in the Philippines. And I'm like, I remember going there and I'm like, where's this goat? Like, I'm looking for, and there was other goats there. I'm running around. They're like, oh, we don't know where this goat is. And so I'm running around looking for it. And I finally go into the backyard. I pull the hatch and I open the gate and I see it there and they're pulling its guts out.
Oh, man.
So I just like faint, and then I wake up from there, that was like my first interactions.
Let me ask you, did these experiences all happen in the Philippines? This is at that age, or would you travel back and forth? Because I assume you're in the States now.
Yeah, the first event happened in the Philippines, and this event happened in America, down in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay.
So
that's not too far from that 33rd parallel too, I'm pretty sure. I mean, that they say a lot of strange activity. I was just reading a book all about that. But continue.
Jekyll Island and all that kind of stuff. But so yeah, I froze up and I fell backwards on my butt. And at that point now I'm like, I'm scared. Like, okay, there's no logical reason. This shit's fucked. And they say fight or flight, I just froze. I basically just stood. When I got up, I just was like shaking, I curled myself up and I was just like freaking out, basically, like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is so weird. And this isn't real life now. And, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh shit, this shit's weird. And so I think I'm talking to myself, but as I'm, like, the voice kind of like starts to be more distinctive. Like, I'm not talking to myself, because it's like, I guess my voice and that voice is kind of like my inner voice, and that inner voice is kind of like, resonating different, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to explain like that. But yeah, everything was telepathic. And so I'm it's starting to say like calm down, and it kind of says something with like an M, and I'm kind of assuming it's like this Hebrew term for angel, like Malachi or Malachi, Malamax, something like that. And they're like, we know who you are, and blah blah blah. And so, but that's kind of like not a 100% number. They did call me something with an M, but I'm not 100% sure what it actually was.
So they named you, but they as if they recognized you already, but they gave you a name that you hadn't recognized. Like they were familiar with you, but you weren't familiar with them or the name.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, but they were like, hey, you're actually lucky. You're actually like, you're actually chosen and stuff like that. And they were basically saying, hey, we're going to set you up through life. We're going to, guide you, I guess, be my guide, make sure, to kind of put me in positions where I'll do whatever needs to be done or whatever. And so as a 12-year-old kid, I'm even though I was like shaking, I'm kind of like, I'm the chosen one. I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, let's do this shit. And then I'm like, basically like, cause it's weird because I'm trying to keep my sanity, but it's at the same time, I'm kind of tapping out into this other thing. And I'm like, well, this green light stuff's going on. This voice is talking to me. And I'm like, fuck, I might as well go with it. We're going to go with the flow. So I'm like, okay, if y'all going to help me, be rich and powerful, let's do it. So I'm basically going for the door now. And they said, wait, hold up. You have to make a choice. And when they said that, I look over and the room stretches out like you're on acid or something. And with the telepathic communication, sometimes there's words, but then sometimes it's visions and understandings. Like kind of like with normal thing, like if you upset like your mom, she looks at you, like you understand, like there's no need to be even say anything else. And I kind of got where they're going with that. And with the telepathic communication too, I tried to scheme, I tried to like, okay, what am I gonna do? Blah, 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 like get myself. And it's like, no. We know you can't hide anything. Like this is open conversation. And with the green tint, looking back at it, it reminds me of the heart chakra. So the heart chakra, the conversation's got to be pure. It's coming from the heart. It's like I felt like maybe they were tapping into that kind of thing, like a green light chakra or something. I don't know. I'm just going with that because with what is it? Heart is an anagram for earth. And stuff like that. So, my older brother, he's type 1 diabetic. So they were like jumping in, and it's not like I'm like, I don't like my brother. It was just the thought crossed my mind and they were jumping on that. Like it, and the visions, the way the visions were when they kind of like take you into the visions, it is like I kept getting it wrong, but it's like the Stooge where they show the Christmas past, present, future. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that. Like as you're seeing these like things play out, and it showed me like, trench coat, handing out presents, driving like, fancy boats and stuff like that. But it like someone like, there's like a part in the vision where someone's like says something like, oh, I'm an older brother and blah, and it was kind of like making that point. And so I'm like, I snapped out of this vision. I'm like, nah. And to play devil's advocate, I can see, and you know how they say the crossroads, when you make this Faustian bargain, it's at the crossroads. I don't feel like they mean like an actual crossroads. I feel like they mean this green light reality thing. It's maybe like, it's because the heart is kind of like the crossroads of the chakras, in a way. So I feel like that's what they kind of mean. And also in one of Little Nas X's Grammy performances, there was a green stage, like the whole stage was like this green stage, and it had a green skull with a cowboy hat on. And he danced on it the first time, he was wearing a white outfit. And then the second time he came out on that stage, he was wearing a dark outfit, and he had the Rams, he was pretending like he's like the devil and stuff like that. So I feel like that green light is like when you sell your soul, it's this, because also they say around the throne of God is like an emerald in one of the Bible verses or something like that.
Yeah. I was just listening to The Wizard of Oz, and everybody knows they're going to the Emerald City to see the wizard. There's definitely a significance there for sure.
there's a part that goes into that too. So I can see how these people who are at this crossroads, they go, well, these things are the masters of the universe. Clearly, I might as well do whatever they tell me to do. And I guess it's just how it's going to go down. You know, what else am I going to do? But for me, I was like, there has to be a supreme being of benevolence. You know, I was like, this can't be the way reality is constructed, you know, where these evil entities are the ones actually like moving the chess pieces. They're the masters of the universe and they control everything because they can, you know, look what they're doing, their powers and stuff. Because even that one guy, Bob Dylan, you know, in his 60 Minutes interview, they said, who do you make the deal with? He's like the supreme commander in this world and in the world we can't see. You know, and yeah.
So this entity appeared first as a gray alien, but then, you know, when the room expands and you're met with this crossroads sort of feeling, what entities is it still gray aliens that are speaking to you, or
well, I don't assume it's the gray alien speaking to me.
It's just like, a voice.
But even though it's a voice, I say they because it feels like
multiple,
like a singularity or whatever, you know,
like an egregore or something, like a
egregore.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. So you're sort of basking in this green light. Your brothers are still seemingly sleeping or even, you know, comatose. Maybe they're like, you know, hypnotized by this energy that you've been, you know, awakened to. What happens next? You know, clearly there's like a feeling of, oh, I could, you know, go this way or this way. And you don't want to take the greedy, selfish way. I don't think that's the outcome here, right? So what happens next?
I refused. And I actually yell out like, you're not God. God is good. And he's more powerful than you. And they start laughing. They start laughing at me and they're like, God, who's God? Like, what is God? Like, if God was real, why isn't he here telling you, you know, hey, don't do that or this and that, you know, basically like kind of being like condescending like that. And they're like, oh, and the final thing they say is they go, maybe it's because we're God. Oh, that's what it is. They say, maybe it's because we're God. And that's when I yell back at them. Cause I'm like, at first I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. You know, not, you know, cause I'm big on family and love and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And that's when they're like, why don't you want to do it? And I told them, because God wouldn't want this. And that's when they were like, who's God? Blah, 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 blah. That's what it was. Yeah.
And maybe I missed something. So what were they hoping you would do, or what were they requiring you to do in order to go through with this deal? Something to your brothers?
Just choose a brother.
Oh, choose a brother. Like which one would survive or which one would go with you or something? Huh. Was it like a threatening kind of feeling that they were when they said choose a brother?
Yeah, I immediately, and because it goes with the Moloch thing, you know,
sacrificing some child. I would imagine that's what you're referencing.
Yeah, and my brother's also the firstborn in our family.
Okay, yes, youngest brother,
and my oldest brother.
Oh, your oldest.
Yeah, he's the firstborn in the
right, of course.
Sorry, but
no, that was my fault. I should have known what firstborn meant. But either way, that aside, so you refuse. They laugh at God, and you righteously, you know, feel confident. At 12 years old, I'm amazed. Were you in church at this time? Was that like, were you a religious family, or?
We weren't religious, but we were definitely spiritual, I'd say.
Okay.
In a way.
So your family had those kind of conversations every now and then, or at least once or twice? Yeah,
and my dad, you know, he was, you know, he's into Tai Chi and stuff like that, you know.
Okay. And so, your dad, I don't know how much you want to get into, but your dad has some other credentials too that might be, you know, correlating to this experience, right?
And it actually goes into it a little bit too. He has some experiences himself that he told me.
Okay. So you have this experience. What happens next? Like when you refuse their bargain?
So I refused them. And they were asking, and so I said, you know, you're not God and stuff. And I'm like, kind of like freaking out at that point, like but because at first when they're communicating with me, they're very charming and stuff like that. Like,
right.
Hey, you know, talk to me in a normal voice. But then at that point, they're like, fucking kid, you know, and they start flooding my mind with weird, you know, my sins and my skeletons in my closet, I guess you'd say. and things. And, and I'm just freaking out, like, and I'm stumbling, I'm just kind of like walking around like this. And as I'm going towards my closet, which would have been at the head of the bed, I get a vision of a galaxy, like what they look like, the Milky Way, like spinning, like a cyclone galaxy thing, like cloud. And it's spinning one way, and it's a orange, reddish color. And then it kind of slows down, and then it starts spinning the other way, and it turns into a dark blue, purple color. And the weird part about it is I'm sitting there and I'm getting this vision of this cloud thing, and then it felt like it smiled at me. And that's like that's like a weird expression. Like, how do you feel a smile? But that's just what, I'm getting this vision. It just felt like a smile. There was no face. It didn't form a mouth or none of that kind of stuff. It just felt like this, like, smile is how we express our joy in a way. Like, so it expressed its joy, and it came out to me in a like a weird feeling like that.
Really? And,
New York Patriot was saying that's actually Crowley was saying something about the smiling cloud in one of his book. He kept talking about smiling cloud, and people are like, what does he mean by smiling cloud? And I feel like maybe that might be something to do with that. Like the smiling cloud, it's kind of like, maybe it's, this, and again, I like to theorize and explore and stuff. Maybe like we think about it like with God, maybe God is like, how that Baphomet has like, it's like a male female type thing.
Right.
It's like, the phallus, it makes a spark of life and all this kind of stuff. And then you have the tits to sustain the life, the source of nourishment,
Right.
It's not, it's weird, but when you think about it in like a astro-cosmic, a cosmic kind of sense, like when you're going out and you're trying to channel this energy from God and stuff like that, like, in a way it's kind of like has to do with how a baby sucks on its mom's teeth. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to.
No, I'm just trying to
explore in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to visualize what you're telling me, but I'm also trying to understand what you're telling me. But let's go back to the experience, because I feel like you might have lost me just a little bit. But I'm with you. It's all right. I'm with you, brother. We're gonna get through this. So you have this strange experience. And, that was at a pretty young age. Were there any experiences that followed, in the next couple of years as a teenager?
Well, when I got that smiling cloud thing, I was like, okay, I feel kind of protected now. So I started, and at that point, I'm like, I want this to end. Like, I'm done with this experience. I just want to wake up and this to be over. So I'm thinking, oh, this is just a bad dream. I'm just having this lucid dream or something like that. I got to go back to sleep now and everything will be normal. So I go and I climb back up into my bed because I'm on the top bunk, and, I get in, I curl up and everything. And I'm like, I'm just going to close my eyes. I'm never going to open my eyes again like that, And as I'm doing that, I get like that sixth sense feeling, like the goosebumps or whatever. And I don't want to look, right? I'm like, cause I'm tapping out basically. But instinctual, it's like a scratch. You got to kind of look. So as I turn around and do that, I see a reptilian humanoid like phases through the door like this, and then turns left, like quarter turn left. And
towards you or away from you?
Towards me. It's like, and it just staring at me from the foot of my bunk bed. And it might have been walking, but the way it would have walked would have just been like, like kind of like a ghost apparition, and just like that, like it was almost on roller skates or something, like a robot.
Yeah.
And it didn't do anything else. It just stood there like perfectly still. And it's and to explain it, I actually sent you the one picture of what it kind of closely resembles. I can't see it with my physical eyes, but I can see it with my mind's eye.
Right.
So it's like a holograph.
It's
weird. I can't see it with my physical eyes. I'm like, I know that thing's not there.
Right.
But just like, I guess with the way like seeing ghosts, it's like, but something's fucking there.
Yeah.
And I can see it in perfect detail. And I can't see it at the same time.
You're talking about the crop circle image?
The reptilian looking thing.
Oh, right. Okay. Obviously. Yes. So this is This is a pretty, I would say it almost looks like a gray, the shape of a gray's head, but like big eyes with like cat kind of eye or reptilian kind of eyes. You know, it's not like the cartoon kind of superhero, you know, super villain crocodile man type reptilian that you might imagine. It's more of a like Star Trek kind of like vibe for it. I don't know how any other way to describe it, but we'll throw the image up in a second. I just got to get it on my email. But yeah, this is strange for sure, brother.
Gary Wayne, I was watching one of his shows, you know who that is? Genesis. So he was sitting there saying, oh, reptilians are actually these fire salamander beings. And when he said that, I'm like, yo, you know, that's actually a better explanation for what they look like. Because I just used reptilian as a general term because it was a serpent type being, but in reality, it was kind of more amphibious, like than cold-blooded iguana looking lizard, like you're talking, or crocodile person, like you're talking about. You know?
Yeah, and you know, to that point, I mean, you do have like the Dogon people who say that they're, you know, Promethean myth, their god who gave them their knowledge came from underwater, and you know that these do look amphibious, just to my observation. Yeah, very interesting.
And this is from memory, you know, but that's the closest thing I could find. But the one thing I will say is its skin was a little bit more scaly.
Okay.
Like it wasn't totally, it was more like a toad than a frog, I guess. Like,
okay.
And its teeth were like tiny shark teeth because because I'm like, when I saw it come in, right, and it's sitting there talking to me like, oh, come on, kid, what are you doing? Come with us. You know, this is stupid and all this kind of, you're worthless without us. You need a, you know, and stuff like that. No one will ever believe you and all this kind of, you know, things. And I'm like, I don't care. You know, I'm done. Like, I was just like, I'm done. This thing could eat me, snatch me out of bed, eat me. I don't care. I'm tapping out. I'm going to close my, but so it kind of smirks at me. And that's when I see its teeth. And it's kind of, you know, it's kind of like amused. It kind of was like amused by the situation. So I closed my eyes the second time, right? And I'm like, this time I'm not opening them up for anything. But as I had my eyes closed the second time, I got a vision of humans standing there looking at monitors. Like maybe like one guy's in the chair and then one guy's standing like kind of over his shoulder like this. And then there's another guy there. Like it looks like people looking at monitors.
Right.
And that reminds me of like what you said earlier about the Wizard of Oz. When they pull back the curtain, you just see it's just some guy and he's operating the whole thing. And my dad, he was military intelligence. So it makes me think maybe this was some sort of Project Bluebeam test run. And I just happened to be a test subject for the whole thing, you know. And
wow.
They're you know, I got the vision. They're like, look, he's not going to go through with this shit, you know, end the program. Cause the next thing, it was kind of like, waking up was kind of like the scene changes, you know? And so I run into I'm like, okay, I'm alive. That's my first thought. And I run into the kitchen and I'm like, hey guys, last night I was visited by reptilian humanoids and they offered me a deal with the devil thing. And of course the logical thing you're gonna say is, oh, that was just a dream, you know, and all that. So it was kind of shocking for me because I'm like, damn, I've had lucid dreams and all that. That wasn't a dream. Like, right. I tried to tell myself it was one just to keep myself from just completely losing it, you know, I guess, in the moment.
Have to, because like if they're not going to believe you, you're better off just being like, yeah, you're right, and then keeping it to yourself. I mean, not that I've had any similar experiences, but I remember that feeling of being a kid and trying to get away with shit, you know, and it definitely was always better to keep your mouth shut if you did something that you didn't want people to find out about. But yeah, it's definitely strange. Did you tell any friends? I mean, was there anybody that you?
Oh yeah. I told all my friends. It was, you know,
what they think.
Oh, it was just a dream.
Yeah,
you know,
same response.
So it's just. Yeah, but the only person was my dad. We went to go get pizza and took me with him, and we pulled into the parking lot. And he's like, "Hey, tell me everything about your experience." Like, and then so I basically just, you know, broke. That's what I keep, because that's what I, you know, told him. Like that whole experience is how it went down. He's like, "Oh, okay, good. I'm glad you thought that through or whatever, you know, type thing." And he was saying, "I believe in aliens," you know, and he had an experience one time, it was before my experience, but he told me at the time, but I guess I didn't really think about it so much, but when he got stage 4 cancer, so he was on his deathbed and I was pretty much caretaking him. And so I was telling him about my story again, my alien story. And he's like, hey, you remember me telling you mine? And I was like, no. And so he refreshed it to me. He said one night, and this would have been, maybe 5, 6, a good bit before my experience, but because my younger brother was a toddler, barely able to speak at the time. So he said he woke up in the middle of the night and heard a noise. So he got up to investigate it. And when he got towards the door, he looked left and there was a gray alien standing in the corner of the room. And when he like made eye contact with it, and he told me, he's like, it looks like what what you would think they look like or whatever. And he kind of like passes out and wakes up, like same kind of thing. And he's like, that's a weird dream, So he goes into the kitchen. He's up like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, but we were up before him this day, I guess. And he came into the kitchen, and my youngest brother says, I was with you last night, Dad. And my dad looks down at him like, what? He's like, where were we? And my younger brother points up at the ceiling and says, there. And so my dad was like, here I am just a night, I just had this weird, crazy dream, I thought. And then the next morning I have my kid telling me, oh, we were taken there. It's like, yeah, what? Wow. But so he said at that point, even though it blew him away, it blew his mind, he forgot about it. He's like, I'm just going to lock this up, never, because he didn't want my mom to think he was crazy. If he said something like that to my mom, she'd be like, you've lost it, take the kids, all that kind of stuff. So he was like, yeah, I didn't want your mom to think I was crazy. So I just never brung it up and just kind of put it in the back of my mind. I feel like that's actually what a lot of people do who have paranormal experiences and all that kind of stuff. They to kind of fit in, they just leave that stuff out.
Right.
And I feel like that's actually being crazy, because what I was like, no matter how weird it was, I'm not going to just forget about it to fit into society, because at that point I am crazy, like, because at that point I'm just I'm changing the way I think just to be like everyone else, and that kind of happened through my teenage years. I kind of lost this spiritual touch, I guess, going, I had a lot of anger issues and stuff like that growing up.
I can relate. Yeah. So these experiences kind of confirmed, and I assume your father's not around anymore, but that's all you heard from him, just that one experience?
Oh yeah. And then also on his, like, a few weeks before he passed, might have been like shortly before his passing, I'm walking by him and he stops me, and he like basically just grabs my arm and he looks up at me. I'm like, he's not, he's been bedridden. He can't really talk too well, but he's like, they took me to the moon, like real raspy and stuff. Like, they took me to the moon, and I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, they took me to the moon. And I'm like, who took you to the moon? He's like, I don't know. He's like, but he said some people came and took him from his deathbed, gave him the ability to walk and do stuff again. They took him to some place where he watched a bunch of videos, and this could all be a morphine trip, you know what I mean? But he said they took him there and he had to learn all these different kind of customs and watch all these videos and things like that. And then he said they took him up to the moon, and he said the backside of the moon is like what they say, like a city, like it's all lights and a big base and stuff like that. And he said they took him in there, and he said they just showed him around, showed him different things. And when I tried to ask what they were, he couldn't explain them. He's like, I can't even really like tell you what I'm seeing. But because I was trying to, get him for the details, but he's already like bedridden. He can't, that's all he can give me. But so I'm asking about that. And he said, just take him around and show him stuff and take him back to his bed. Take him back to his bed. And at one point he wanted to make to me, as his like big story from it all is, he said, walking down in one of the hallways, he saw this guy looking down at his little tablet, because he was trying to ask me what a tablet was. He's like, what's that thing, and this and that. Oh, tablet. And he's like, oh yeah, the tablet. But he said the guy was looking at the tablet, and two tall white grays, tall white aliens walked by this dude. And the guy looked up, made eye contact with my dad, and just kept eye contact with my dad and then looked down at his tablet. And the point he was getting across was, I guess, like, this guy completely ignored these giant aliens that walked by him, like, because it's probably something he sees every day, you know? It's like, so he was trying to say, like, I guess if there is like a fake alien invasion, or maybe there are real aliens and they come here, like, it'll be okay. You know, maybe for a lot of people, that's too shocking of a thing. But it, you know, maybe that's the point he was kind of trying to get to me. Like, you just get used to it.
So he didn't want you to be afraid. Like, there was no warning, like, son, they got moon bases and you gotta watch out.
Yeah, don't be afraid. Yeah, that was what he was getting across. Like, because why would aliens and all if you're an intergalactical space traveling creature, why would you want to come down and interact with us when we're fighting each other over sports teams and the color shirt we're wearing that day, you know? And I feel like that's kind of why they wouldn't really want to interact with us for the most part. We're not even ready to because if we're doing that to each other, let alone something that looks different, that is a different species than us, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have a lot of questions. So this tablet, do you remember maybe what year he was up there? Because it sounds like the tablet was like something he wasn't familiar with.
This would have been about 3 years ago.
Okay. But that wasn't when he was in service, and potentially, like, the story took place, what time period do you think? 90s, 80s, 70s?
On his deathbed.
Well, right. He told you the story on his deathbed.
No, they took him from his deathbed and gave him took him and gave him the
okay. I'm sorry, I missed that part. So he had this experience while he was okay. I get it. Right. So wow. And
there's another part that goes with that. We came back from a restaurant, and I had to pee real bad, and it was me and him in the truck, and he's a tough dude and everything, even though he's MS, he's bedridden, and basically supposed to be, he likes to do his own thing kind of with that kind of stuff. So I pulled his chair up, and I'm like, "Oh, you got this?" He's like, "Yeah, I got this." So I ran inside to go use the bathroom, and when I came back out the garage, he has like this, his eyes are all wide, like, he's sitting in his chair, and he looks shocked, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And I'm trying to like talk to him, and it takes him a second to tell me, but he says that when he was getting in his chair, like, he was like stumbling and went to like fall, and then he said a force grabbed him like really hard and pulled him back onto his chair. So he thought it was me. He thought maybe I was still standing there. He looked around, nobody was around him, and then he sees me open up the garage door and come out, and so I guess he had like some force pull him back onto his chair and everything like that. And then the part that makes it really weird and is at his funeral, when we were kids, he kept saying, "Oh, you'll see at my funeral," type thing. But at his funeral, there was a big fish moment, because the protocol for a veteran, for the funeral or whatever, is one flag per deceased veteran. And at this funeral, they presented 2 flags. And the guy who presented the flags was a Navy SEAL. And my dad wasn't a Navy SEAL.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Before the funeral happened, we're all standing in there, and the funeral lady says, "Hey, they're going to present another flag. Who is it going to go to?" So I said, "Our youngest sister." And we're like, "That's weird. What's this 2 flag thing?" But, we're all sad. So we're kind of like, whatever. And so during the thing, they do the flag thing, fold it up, and they go to my mom. My mom's, freaking out and everything. So I'm kind of just having my head down. He says the words to her and everything like that, gives her the flag. And then he gets up, turns around, and the other flag is on a podium, a little post or a tripod thing. Already he goes and grabs that and walks over to my sister, and she's to my left in the second row back. And so he says the words to her, and I'm still kind of like having my head down. And when he stands up and salutes her, I look over, and I just kind of looking at his, ribbons and stuff like that, just, out of curiosity. And I saw the eagle and the trident, and it blew me back. And I was like, what? Yeah. Like, this guy's a Navy SEAL. And then he just walked out. And after the funeral, a bunch of people were like, because he was a very popular swim coach, and, a lot of people liked him. and stuff like that. And so there was like over 100 people there, and a bunch of people were asking me, what was that about? We've been to, lots of military funerals and we've only seen one flag. Like, what's this 2 flag thing? I'm like, I don't have answers. Yeah, no. And I actually researched that and looked it up. Like, why would they do this? And they said it's protocol that's only one flag. So I guess essentially protocol was broken. And so that was pretty wild. And so anybody that was there, right, they say, oh, Walt got 2 flags at his funeral. Someone Google it up real quick. No, that's bullshit. They don't do that. No, I was there. Yeah. But it's because of the way facts are constructed, it'll always never be a truth, in a way. It'll only be a truth for the people who were there.
Right.
And I say that with the facts too. I have like a little quote thing about it. Like, it's the fact that Epstein killed himself. It's the fact that there's more than 2 genders. And it's the fact that there's no such thing as monsters. So, facts. Yeah, I'm for facts and things like that, but facts aren't everything.
I hear you, man. I hear you for sure. Yeah, that's strange. Have you ever looked in to see if there's maybe like more examples of other, veterans that were involved in black budget programs potentially who had received 2 flags on their deathbed there?
Yeah, I guess he was telling me maybe a movie like The Men Who Stare at Sheep. That one movie. He told me like maybe check out that movie, and then he also told me there was actually coincidentally there was a movie called Smoking Aces 2, like part 2, like direct to DVD, Assassin's Ball. There's a character in that movie that has the same name as my dad, Walter Weed.
Right.
And he's pretending to be just some pen pusher, desk jockey guy. But in reality, he's like, Black Ops, unit member and stuff like that.
Wow.
And because I've had a Green Beret colonel like telling me like, oh, you should have seen your dad back in the Vietnam days. He did some amazing stuff, but that's like, I'm just doing my job. It's just kind of thing. And I got to see the movie Black Hawk Down in theaters before it was released to the public with the people that were involved there, because I guess my dad helped out some of those guys with the swimming in Savannah and stuff. And so I got to see it. And I bring that up because it's, talk about the troops or whatever. During all the action sequences, these guys were riled up, savages, having a great time and stuff. But by the end of the movie, as I was walking out, it was silent except for crying. There's a bunch of guys in there crying and they're all huddling around each other. And, it's okay, and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of like, I'm watching this Hollywood movie and it kind of took me out of it and showed me that in real time, and that's the part that they don't put in the movies. Yeah. All the trauma and stuff that people have experienced. And, even my dad on his deathbed, he stopped me one time and was mournful about the people he's killed. He's like, I blew them all up and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, you're doing your job, they're bad guys and stuff. And he's like, yeah, but I still, killed them. And because he would have those, how they say you see shadow people and things like that. Like when you're, like the Grim Reaper, he would tell me, he'd come here and, turn off the TV, because he said the newscasters would start looking real evil. They would start looking like demons and stuff like that.
Oh, man.
So he'd come in there and make me turn off the TV, or he'd see like a shadow person in the corner of the room or something like that. He'd be like, you see that? I'm like, no, there's nothing there. He's like, but right before his passing, he was definitely at peace, because he was telling me you should have, maybe that's one of those things he kind of had to, that shadow work he had to do in a way.
Right.
So, but he was like, yeah, because he's kind of like before he died, like his organs were already like shutting down. Like he was basically like hanging on, to the, the very last seat. Like he should have probably died a long time ago. That's what the hospice nurses were like. We don't know. He should have been dead like 2 weeks ago, But he was like, I can see, he's like, I wish you could see what I can see. It's really beautiful, like undescribably beautiful, what the world he can get glimpses of, I guess, like fading in. And that was something he said, I guess, to tell me it's undescribable beauty,
Yeah,
made it through it. But so that's, but with him being in the military intelligence and his, extraterrestrial stories connecting with my extraterrestrial stories and stuff. But it also connects to secret societies, because in high school, which would have been years after the Reptilian thing, a classmate approached me and he taught me this number thing, because he was like, hey, I can tell you got a light or something like that. You got the light. He kept saying that. And then he's showing me this number thing. And he asked me what I thought of it. And I said, well, if numbers explain the physical universe, then this clearly states that there's no chaos and that things follow a law. Things follow a structure, a blueprint, so to speak. There is order to the chaos, I guess. And I was basically saying, like, yeah, there's a God. It clearly states there's whatever that is. There's a supreme being, And he goes, oh, that's good. That's good. You should think about being a Freemason. I'm like, what's a Freemason? And he's telling me, oh, it's a brotherhood. But looking back, I guess back now, he was a Demolay.
Right.
Which is like the junior Freemasons.
Yeah. Interesting.
But,
and he was like trying to recruit you, essentially.
Like, I think he, like, thinking back, he did say I couldn't get into the Demolays, but he's like, try to be a Freemason, like work your way up and do good in school and try to.
So he was really
apply,
like going out of his way. It wasn't like he was getting something out of it. He noticed something in you and said, hey, I think you'd be a good fit for this. So did that go anywhere? Did you end up joining? What transpired after that?
Well, directly afterwards, a classmate sat down. And I was like, I just learned this. So I told her, I was like, hey, let me show you this number thing. She's like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about numbers. Like, she didn't see it. She didn't see the inner philosophy to it or whatever. And he tells me, he's like, hey, man, don't share that with people. He's like, that's like for the elect few. Like, this is special knowledge. This isn't for everybody type thing. And I said, well, if it involves God, I'm going to tell to everybody I know. And there's a bunch of buzzing going on. But so, yeah, that's what I've been, but it was kind of something I only would remember as kind of like a party trick, like a little gimmick. Hey, look, I showed, when someone talks about numerology or something like that, I'm like, hey, look, I know this little number thing.
So tell me about the number thing. I assume it's the black and white. It's not completely a checkerboard. It's like a checkerboard with an X over it. And you sent me the photo. I have the photo up here for the viewers. You can't see it, but it's like the 9s across the top, 0s across the left side, and then it says 975310, and then it go. Oh, okay, I see it. It's odds and evens there, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Interesting. So what's the game here? How do you?
I'm gonna flip my camera. I have like a
show us. Yeah, go for it.
Thing here. There's my little book tripod. But yeah, this number thing, I just kind of forgot about it. I only remembered that one part, but about a few years ago, I was, because now I'm into the conspiracy stuff. I'm like, what does this numbers crap even mean? Like, is there anything else to it that I don't know about? So this is what he did. He drew it out 0 to 9. Can you see that pretty clear?
Oh yeah.
0 to 9. And he said, the kingdom of God is within. So we add from outside to inside, essentially breaking down the layers. And 45, right? 45th president. That's kind of when shit started going weird. But you add outside to inside, and it comes out to 5 9s.
Okay.
Which also equals 45. But so he says that's the Most High. That symbolizes God. We can't go any higher than God. So we have to break down from that point. So this time we use a subtraction and subtract from outside to inside. And it's 97531, which is the masculine numbers. And it's the where am I? Masculine numbers going from left to right, because even with the 1 being and then, so he says this is atom or atom, atomic.
Right.
So Eve is broken down from Adam. So at that point, he says we subtract from God, we get Adam. We subtract from God and Adam, and we get Eve, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, or the even numbers.
Wow. Yeah.
And then if we subtract it all, we get the 4 zeros. And then so that could be, this is like a little thing here. Yeah, God, Alpha, Most High, God, Adam, positive, even, Eve, negative, God, Omega, source. Because in that one verse it says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. So that would be 90, because this block actually adds up to 90. And but if you also notice here, all right, this is it forms this hexagram. It's kind of like a flower right here. But also, see, I take out these. What is it? Yeah, two 9s on each side. You add that up, 18, 36, 369. And this will come into play later with that black and white symbol. That's considered a magic square of the sun. But within that magic square of the sun, I just out of intuition, weird thing, I guess, there's a story into that. It creates a symbol for Mercury, the sigil for Mercury or whatever, without the circles. But so people say we're God having a experience and stuff like that. So this is like Nikola Tesla says, the key to the universe is 369. This, if you add it up, it all becomes 36. 36, 3 plus 6 equals 9. And it's separated from this right here. So this would be God as the 90 and everything between, and this would be God and us. So it's kind of showing a duality of God's character. Like he's the source of creation, but he's also the spark of it, or the pinnacle, the high point of it. But then also, so they say 0 has no effect over the physical universe. And this is all he taught me was this top part. And so this other stuff is just kind of things I've taken out of it.
Okay.
But so I took 0 and I put it to the other end, and it creates this right here, 1 and then 4 11s. So that goes into the 1111 Make-A-Wish 1111 synchronicity number. And also, have you ever heard of Mark Twain's Mysterious Stranger number 44?
No, but Mark Twain is definitely a point of interest for me.
He has one of his things is about the Mysterious Stranger number 44.
Okay. And
in the title, they call that Young Lucifer. Because you see here, it's like if Lucifer is the master of this universe, under that effect, even though God is supposedly the master of every, all omnipotence, he does give Lucifer power of this domain, I guess, in a way. That's what I'm just kind of theorizing. And that goes in, but so I feel like there's something about, I guess Aleister Crowley mentioned before about the power of the 1 next to the 1 and the 11, the duality mass number. There's 1,440 minutes in a day. And also a square yard is 1,296 inches. So a square yard could be like, maybe that's our like magnetic field, our auric field in a way. Maybe it stretches out to that point in some way, and if you divide 1,440, which is how many minutes there are in a day, by 1,296, you'll get this one alpha code thing going, where it's just all ones.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like, it's showing you that that's like maybe that this is, I've had theories, maybe this is all to create something, put something together, or just kind of, and it goes into some other stuff here. And so what I did is I compare it with a magnet, like with the 0 is the South Pole and then 9 is the North Pole. So I bent him, because when you bend a magnet and have the poles next to each other, the magnetic effect is increased.
Right.
So what I did is I took I mirrored it and reversed it, and it creates this like barrier here. And the numbers inside of here, just like we did when we took out the 36, this will equal 72. And Solomon says he trapped the 72 spirits in his brass vessel. So it's kind of, it's like, and this thing too, if you take this 2 block thing, mirror thing, and you put it below, you can put it below, you can put it left, you can put it right, you can put it above. And no matter, this is kind of like a mathematical flower of life, I guess you could say. You can just keep attaching new layers. So maybe there's like a realm is held in by like this magnetic kind of lock. And this is the reality. And then maybe there's some way you have to go. Maybe this is like spiritual tunnel system. I don't know. I'm just going off. It's just kind of theorizing. But 40 is the only number in the English language that goes in alphabetical order. And we know about how in the 40 days, 40 nights, and how there's all that, special stuff with 40 and all that.
The only letter in the English language.
Or the only number in the English language.
Right. Okay. I was going to say, because I just thought of a couple. I'm like, the name Abe, that's not really a proper word, but it's a name. But okay, I get what you're saying. So out of all the numbers, it's the only one that kind of numerological, because I think most people who listen to the show understand this concept by now, but each letter itself also has a numerical quantity and quality. So yeah, I mean, 40, F is 6, O is 15, R is 18, T is 20, and Y is 25. So you can even do the math there and add those up all together. People are probably like, holy shit, Mark, how'd you know what every number quality of the letters are off the top of your head? Well, I remember one of the first things that I ever saw in like this conspiracy memeology when I was in like high school was the news network Fox. And they were like, look, Fox equals 666 because F is 6, O is 15, 1 plus 5 equals 6, and then X is 24, so 2 plus 4 equals 6. So ever since then, I've just been like kind of schizophrenically doing this kind of math all the time. So I love what you're showing me right now, brother. I'm impressed because honestly, I never thought to line it up with a magnet like that, and I think that's really thought-provoking. What stands out to me is 18 and 81 being kind of like, I mean, almost like milestones in someone's life, but also pretty like potent numbers. You see like that 81 like symbolism in certain places. I don't know, it just stands out for some reason to me. But it also is like the infinity, but then a line,
the infinity, you see that? Yeah.
Yeah, 8 is an infinity and 1 is just like a one-dimensional plane, right? So it's kind of like a contrast there too. So very, very interesting stuff, brother.
And I'm actually curious. I never actually thought about doing that, so I might check that out later. See what that comes out to.
Yeah, well, and I will say Marty Leeds, who we just had on the show, he's got some really fantastic books on this subject. But what I've noticed is like there are different ciphers and different codes depending on which secret society we're talking about. So I would imagine you broke into like, I mean, in a code breaker kind of way, thanks to this hint that a peer gave you kind of cracked maybe like an Abrahamic Freemasonic type of cipher here. I think it's really fascinating, dude.
Yeah, and so with the 90, right? This is some Gematria stuff here. I did that with this is a PQRST wave, which is like a little heartbeat monitor.
Okay.
And oddly enough, this kind of represents like life in a way, right? You're born, you reach your peak, you come to, if you live a good life, and then you come up and then you pass on.
Right.
But I did that, and that actually comes out to 90.
Wow. I mean, and that's like considered a nice lengthy life if you live till 90. I know some of my grandparents are going past that, but that's, yeah.
Oh, nice. Good. But I did some studying about the heart, because about the way a heartbeat works.
Right.
Our heart rests at a negative 90, or it's polarized at a negative 90 millivolts. So another coincidence with the 90 thing there, before it can, it creates that spark that makes the heart contract and beat. And so the heart, we don't think about because it beats so many times throughout the day, but we don't think about it. It's kind of an Ouroboros. It's kind of this this electrical, because it is an electrical process that is constantly going on to keep us alive. This is thing,
I think I even heard something recently that they found that the heart is not a pump like we're told in anatomy class. Like it's this much more complicated process, and it might not even be like compressing the blood like what we would think a heart would do. Maybe it's operating in a more electromagnetic function. I mean, there is iron in our blood. Iron is certainly magnetic, or at least responds to a magnetic force. So, yeah, man. So you also have the alpha and the omega here. 90 equates the alpha and the omega. That's very interesting.
And it comes out to, 290 is 180. And you were saying earlier about the 18 and how that's a sacred number and everything like that. The Hindus consider 18 a sacred number, or 108 a sacred number. And the Jewish people, they consider 18 a lucky number.
Yeah. I actually, I put a Peter Shampoo, a recent guest, as episode 108. I think it was out of order from when we scheduled, when we recorded them. But I was like, you know what? Peter's episode deserves the 108.
But this goes into some cube of Saturn stuff here in a minute, because 108 times 2 is 216. Wow. And 216 is a 6 times 6 times 6 cube.
Damn. Yeah, and again, you can't see this because it's through OBS. I encourage folks listening to check out our Rockfin account. We put all the video versions of the show on Rockfin, and you shared with me in our Instagram chat a cube that's basically, I mean, I don't even know how we would describe the process of how they make crop circles. I was going to say burnt into the crops, but it's like, I guess it's more of a fusion process, and maybe there's even lithium in there. But yeah, this really fascinating crop circle with a cube, and not just any cube. It's not like one line pointing to another line. There's like a very, very detailed image of a cube in a crop circle, and it's given the axis, it's kind of like pointing at its three-sided nature, and it's also it's in a circle too, so it's like a circle and a square symbolism too. But it's interesting because I also notice now that you have both on the screen here, the connection between the north, south, east, west math that you did there with this cube shape. Is that come into play at all?
It probably does, but actually I never thought about that. So
yeah, well, I mean, there's 6 sides of a cube, six directions there, or 8, right? Yeah. Is it 8? I'm
8.
sorry.
Oh yeah, 8. But that cube, that black and white symbol, that's right. I came up with that because I just drew the numbers out basically like the snake thing, like Ouroboros, and I'm like, wait a minute, this kind of creates a 6 times 6 graph. So I found that checkerboard on the internet because I'm like trying to be cool or whatever but actually tapping into the dualistic of it, right? And I was just going to see if it fit in. So I created like that. I put the numbers on the outside, and then I did 3 slashes going one way, 1, 2, 3, and then I did 1, 2, 3, and it created that X in a diamond symbol on that black and white image. And that's also, I guess I looked up, that's kind of like the sigil for Mercury.
Right.
And so that symbol there even with the numbers bordering it, it's one side of that cube crop circle, because on that cube crop circle, there's that border, and then there's that open, and it's a 6 times 6 graph, one side.
Right. And you know what? So, to our point earlier, there are 8 points on a cube, so that would maybe be the 8 directions. But I'm just trying to sound smart now, so I'll let you do that.
It probably does, man. That's a lot of this stuff. Like even with that crop circle, it's stuff I would post online. I don't even know what it means, so I'm hoping someone will kind of tell me.
Okay.
But people, they'll point something out, and it'll open up a new door for me to take it.
I'll tell you what, man. Past guests Slick Dissident would love to talk to you. I could tell. I don't know if he's watching on Rockfin, but he's listening in the Telegram. Shout out to all of our Telegram users. Thank you for following us and being a part of the Telegram family. But you could listen to the show live on Telegram, like my man Gabe over here, and he's very much into a lot of what you're showing me here in the notebook, bro. I love it. It's definitely fascinating stuff. So, what does this all mean? I mean, what obviously your experiences kind of sent you down this path where all of this research is more than just, something you're doing for a hobby. It seems to me like there's like a passion, like an intuition that's pushing you to decipher these kind of things. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, because I got one that's to show people is a lot of this kind of stuff. It just kind of pops in my head, like with the heart. Like I don't even remember how I started looking up PQYST waves. It's just I ended up there.
Yeah, I hear that.
But also with 1776, I thought about 1776. And so I was like, okay, is there something esoteric algebra or something like that? So I said, there's duality, and duality can symbolize, 2, 1, 2. And then I thought about how the pentacle is a big thing, and also how the pentacle is the symbol for a humanoid. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I've seen like I think it's Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci. They have like the, that very famous drawing. But yeah, I've seen that as a pentagram for sure. Yeah, the 5 elements.
And so I said, okay, let me divide 1776 by 2 5 times. And what happens is it comes out to 3 8s or 888, 444, 222, 111, and then 55.5. So it's like, I was like, that's a weird synchronicity there. It kind of looks like and it kind of makes this tower. And I'm like, okay, let me see how I can make a connection. So I look up the Washington Monument, or no, I didn't look it up. It was one of those kind of things. I just kind of came across some meme about the Washington Monument. It said 55, that the Washington Monument is 555 feet.
Right.
So I said, boom, there, as above, so below.
Yeah.
And also, if you notice that there's next to the Washington Monument is that big pond.
Uh-huh.
So I guess if you're standing from one end, it's reflecting, and as above, so below. Like the energy is going up, but then the energy is also going into like this mirror world, I guess.
Yeah, strangely enough, the movie Forrest Gump comes to mind in that like famous scene where they're standing in front of that pond, but it's like a man-made reflecting pool. And yeah, it definitely is this kind of like mirror world imagery, and you don't see that with every obelisk. It's funny, you see that with that obelisk, maybe others, but I know there's one that's also pretty monumental in, what is it? Now I'm forgetting the name. Central Park. How could I forget that? In New York City, they have Cleopatra's Needle, which was actually removed from Egypt and brought to New York City. I don't know if it's like a well-known feature of Central Park, because there is so much else that they point you towards. And I remember last time I was there this summer, I could not find it. But yeah, sorry, total tangent. But obelisks are strange, especially when you go into a cemetery and you see that everybody who is a Freemason is buried under an obelisk, and then it's very clearly kind of a phallic symbol as well. So who knows, maybe that's what the birth of the nation, they're symbolizing that with the Washington Monument.
And also a thing that happened in the beginning of our country is they actually went to that during 9/11. There was that church next to the Ground Zero that the towers missed. And back in the day, the George Washington, the House of Representatives, and Congress, they all did this big ritual essentially and went to this church. And they went inside of this church and prayed to God to bless America.
In Manhattan?
Yeah, Manhattan.
Wow.
It's called, there's a church there. All you have to do is type 9/11 church, and I'm sure it'll
is it the really interesting kind of like Renaissance architecture type church? I think it's like
no, just a small old chapel.
Okay.
Yeah. But it just kind of shows that even back then, they would basically just do a giant ritual like that in public, and it was just a part of how things went in America. But it could have, they're praying to God, but from what we know, maybe it wasn't the God we think.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing you hear with Freemasonry, is that they don't really tell you which God to pray to, but you get the impression that maybe the higher ups are in on some knowledge, and maybe that's what that knowledge includes, who the real God, that they're kind of open to any God, and then you figure out, oh, it's actually this guy, Lucifer, or whoever it is. I mean, we've done podcasts recently with that topic, and it was kind of more on the level of Lucifer's all bad, but I've also heard people talk about Lucifer as like this light bringer. I don't personally have any like, I don't take a side, but I will say I don't support any evil that's been done, and I don't plan on associating with any evil entities, but I definitely have read things that gives you the impression that Lucifer's not all bad. But yeah, it definitely feels like that's in the zeitgeist of Freemasonic things that you at least hear. I actually have the dictionary. Maybe I should see what the Freemasons define Lucifer as right here, right now on the show.
All right.
Let's see, my man. Lucifer. This is one of the benefits. I told my mom, she's like, what do you want for Christmas? I said, money. And she said, no, you're just going to buy books. I said, well, I need to buy books. It's my job. I read my books on the job. Now I get paid to read this shit. Well, sort of, not really. I mean, I get paid a little bit. Help us out on the Patreon, so I get paid more to do this. But anyways, looking for the word Lucifer, and curiously, it's not in their dictionary. I don't know who this Robert McCoy is, but that's a letdown. Hold on. All right. Anyways, that was a failed attempt at looking into the dictionary. But you got any more notes in the notepad to share us, or you want to turn the camera on? What do you got?
I was gonna go over this real quick and then talk about this new aspect of the Last Supper, which kind of goes into Lucifer a little bit.
Let us know.
So this is another little gematria thing. So I just took the north and south are 5 letters, and then west and east are 4 letters. Northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast are 9 letters. So I put that number here. And so down here, you add up north, south, east, and west by how many letters are in letters are in the word, and it's 18. So we have the 9 there. And then northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast comes out to 36. And when you add those two together, 18 plus 36 equals 54. So that's the 9 thing too. But then that'll go into this other thing. But so also what I did next is I went to the Gematria website and took the actual Gematria value of the directions, and it came out for north 75, northeast is 120, east is 45, southeast is 128, south is 83, southwest is 150, west is 67, and northwest is 142. So what I did here is north, south, and east, west is Gematria value is 270. 270 in a Gematria code. And then the northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast in Gematria is 540 when you add all the values up. So 270 plus 540 is 810. And when you add 810 with 90, it comes out to 810 and 90 is 900. So, and that's the directions, right? Because where does 90 come in? 90 is the pointer. That's us, right? We're in the middle of this magnetic field, and 90 is us connected to it. And it's strange that not only does it match up with the letters, but the Gematria value comes out to this 90 stuff too, showing like a magnetic synchronicity with the number thing, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's really fascinating stuff, man. The Gematria stuff, I don't know how the audio listeners are going to take it, because it is, a lot of visuals, but it's definitely interesting stuff, and it's a great opportunity for me to get more people on to our Rockfin account, because it's free. If you're there when we're live, it's free, and then obviously all the video content goes to the Patreon. So Ron, I love it, brother. And the Telegram is wild right now. People are listening. They're chiming in. They're talking about 9s. They're talking about 1776. So you're definitely speaking our language. But yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, I definitely have more questions than answers at this point. I just I wonder, like, a couple questions, maybe if we can go back to the experience and like how this connects to, where you're at right now. Like, I wonder, has the thought ever crossed your mind, like if the experiences you and your father had were in some way like a warning to him to not disclose this kind of information to anyone, and that's why it wasn't until he was like, about to pass away that he was, sharing this type of stuff and even having more experiences, seeming like, consensually too. Like, it didn't seem like it bothered him. I mean, right? It seemed like he enjoyed the contact.
Oops.
Did you hear me? Did I break up?
Oh yeah, I broke up.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm just asking, if you think that he was being visited and you were visited in that way as like a warning, for him to not disclose any of this information. It seems like it wasn't until he was about to pass away that he shared this stuff with you.
Yeah, and it might even be a ancestral thing, because I did the Ancestry.com, and I looked up, I do have a percentage of Ashkenazi Jew, so that's maybe a connection with the Gematria being a Jewish thing. Yeah. And also my great-grandfather was a Freemason and seemed to be a pretty big shot type one. Because he was the head of like this organization and that,
and that was
head
his
of this
father.
And that. His grandfather.
His grandfather. So your great-grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, that's definitely, I mean, typical what we hear with folks that are in these sorts of groups is that they have these kind of connections back and forth from the military to, all these different organizations. But yeah, man, this is fascinating stuff. I'm wondering.
This is the part where so I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Because I know the Gematria stuff is a little out, but so I put my actual birth name, which is Ron Robert Gavina. I put it into the Gematria thing. And it comes out that the English Gematria is 1,296, 36 times 36, or 1,296 divided by 216 6 times. Yeah. So the simple Gematria of my name is 216, which is a 6 times 6 times 6 cube. And then 99, which is the 18, and then 297 is 33 times 9. And then 108, the thing. And then if you add up all those numbers, it comes out to 720, which is, they say like you do a 360 and you do the shadow work, and then you do another circle as like an ascension type thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so my name has to do with, because it comes out and I unraveled the magic square of the sun and everything like that. So I'm like, okay, my name has to do with a 6 times 6 times 6 cube. And I know this number thing that unravels into 6 times 6 times 6 cubes stuff. And so I'm like, okay, maybe him teaching me this number thing wasn't as much of an accident as I initially thought it was. And maybe they ran my name through whatever program and said, heck, this kid. Because I also thought too that with my experience, it could have possibly been a jinn possession. Like, have you seen the movie Wishmaster?
No.
It's this horror movie from back in the day where this jinn or genie, he grants you wishes, but whatever you wish for, he always finds some way to twist it around and make it benefit him. So what I was thinking is, one of my theories is maybe I was a vessel for a demonic entity, to take control of, and where they said you would be rich and powerful, right? And I would experience it, I would feel it. But the thing is I wouldn't be in control of that vessel. That demon would have came in and possessed me. So it's like, yeah, we gave you what we said we were going to give you. But we didn't tell you that you'd be the one running the show,
Right.
Oh, okay. So that's where I kind of feel maybe I could have been like a vessel for an entity, I was linking with the Cube Saturn, but this is the Da Vinci, right? I don't actually have the Da Vinci painting up, but this is the depth of the painting. The painting itself the magnetic connection or the space in between, and then us standing there looking at the painting. Because when you look at the painting, it's the table, right? If you're standing in front of the Da Vinci painting and you're looking at it, there's the three arcs, right? And then Jesus's head is in the center arc. The light source is behind Jesus's head, because Jesus in astrology represents the sun. So that's where so Jesus is the light source. So it's a light source, which is behind, because, Da Vinci shows the depth through the back, Left eye is the third left arc, third eye, middle arc, right eye, the right arc. And then you have the optic chasm, which is what takes the light to the visual cortex, which is in the back of the brain. So when you're standing there looking at Da Vinci's painting, not only does it form a cross, like you're at the bottom of the cross looking up, because Jesus's feet used to be crucified right there. So you're actually forming a cross when you're standing in front of this painting looking at it. But also a cross is the way we transfer light to the back of our brain, to the visual cortex.
Wow.
And also, if you look at the way light, if you look at light diagrams, how light enters eyes, it looks like the symbol for Lucifer, because you have the, light one light going into the right eye, and then you have the line going across to the left eye, and then you have one going here to the left eye, and then it goes across to the right eye.
Right.
It forms that. So it's coming in. So Da Vinci's painting, this is maybe in theory, is not only forming a cross, but he's explaining how the visual cortex processes light the same way we process his painting.
That's so fascinating for the listeners. I mean, the shape, it's like a horizontal cross, and it's bringing to mind something I was looking at in the glossary of architecture that I have, and this concept of like a church being, microcosm, macrocosm. You have this sort of body, the body of man encoded in the actual design of the building from a bird's eye view. But yeah, man, I mean, this is definitely a deep topic that deserves a whole entire other conversation. But Ron, I mean, I got to thank you, brother. This has been fascinating stuff, from your story to your theories to the connections you're bringing to mind. I'm definitely impressed, and I definitely would love to have another conversation about the Last Supper and whatever else you find along the way, man, because this is some interesting stuff.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to come on here and talk to you and everything like that, and share my story, because, for many years it's fallen on deaf ears. So it's finally nice to, and I had a feeling that's why I reached out to you, because of the way you talked and things you brought up. I was like, a lot of people, not saying that they don't, but they don't really get the deeper layers that you've been able to get and understand, that's where they kind of say, yeah, most people just see numbers, but you were able to see through that veil and see the deeper aspects of it. And to the listeners too, there's actually a lot more it breaks down to, but that's a whole different, that's some, that's for the listeners to unravel more for themselves. And that's why I don't really try to give away too much, because it loses the scholarly effect of learning it yourself. Instead of it being taught to you, you learn it by going through that journey of unraveling it.
Well said. Yeah, so I think that's the most important thing that you can learn, is how to learn, because then from there you go and you find all this stuff in this synchro-mystic way. So yeah, Ron, man, this has been another synchro-mystic conversation. I thought we were going to spend the whole time talking about aliens and reptilians, and we ended up getting into a lot of really cool symbolism. So I definitely, again, would love to have you back to get into this deeper. And yeah, like we said, a lot of visuals this episode. So folks, go over to the Rockfin and check out the premium content. Patreon also will have this video. And Ron, is there somewhere where the folks can follow up with you if they want to leave you a message or share their thoughts with you or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I'm at Berserk Space Cowboy on Instagram.
Right on.
So yeah,
all spelled normal, and that'll be in the description. So folks, follow Ron on Instagram. Tell him what you think. Maybe you'll hear from some people who have also had similar experiences, which could be relieving, maybe, or maybe disturbing. Who knows? We'll have to find out next time you're here. But I got to ask you one last question. With all you know and with everything you do, does your family think you're crazy?
They do, because of the stuff I talk about, but they actually they know that I'm a logical thinker as well. You know,
so you have a good
they
reputation.
know I'm very yeah. I don't take any of my life advice, but I'm no guru or anything like that. I'm just a regular guy, you know. But yeah, they think what I say is crazy, but they know I'm not.
Love it. I love it, man. Well, cheers to you. Thank you so much for joining us here, and thank you, folks, for listening wherever you are in the now. All right, what a conversation with Ron Weed. So many different twists and turns. We talked about his contactee experience, and then Gematria and the Ciphers. I definitely recommend that you check out the video version of this episode, because Ron had some really cool stuff to show us from his notebook. It was not a screen share. It was from his notebook. He's been writing down a lot of interesting stuff, but we're going to go into a extended outro segment here with Slick Dissident in the Telegram live stream. Shout out to Matt Black and Rob B. They got spirit animal names, as well as Slick and our friend Dan Donanaki, who is also listening in the Telegram. If you want to be a part of the community, show up in the Telegram, be there when we go live, listen to the show live, and hang out while the show's still growing, because this thing is moving and changing and getting bigger every day. I can't do it without your support. If you're into supporting the show, go over to Patreon, patreon.com/MFTIC. Not only do we have some really awesome bonus content for you to find there, but like I said, I'm in touch with you guys, building a community here. We have a private Patreon Telegram only, so if you're a part of the Patreon already, join that Telegram. I know there's some of you who's still not a part of that Telegram. We definitely want to have a cool little Patreon Telegram, and in the future I'm planning on hosting basically like a monthly get-together for patrons, so you guys can share your synchros with me in the group and maybe meet some like-minded folks and learn some new things from other like-minded folks, and maybe some folks who aren't so like-minded, because I know the show is definitely not an echo chamber. We've had a variety, a plethora, if you will, of different guests with unique perspectives, and that's exactly what I aim to do here. And when I say the show's changing, I mean all for the better, and I can't do it without your support. And you know, if you want the show to remain free, sign up on Patreon. What I mean by that is, you know, there are ways where I can maybe cut the show in half and charge you for the second half, and that does sound like a very, very good option. I see a lot of awesome podcasts doing that very same thing with a lot of success, and you know, I definitely don't, you know, I'm not fooling myself here. I have a long way to go before I get to that level, but that's what I intend on doing. So for the time being, if you want to be with the show in the early stages and be a part of this community, maybe even jump on the show, because like today's second guest that you're about to hear, you know, he's a very big part of the Telegram community, and you know, when I'm doing the outros, it's a lot easier to chat with someone like him who also listened to the interview, as you'll hear in a moment, than it is to maybe call up my buddy, you know, Ryan from the Dangerous World podcast. Shout out to you. You know, we don't really have time necessarily to listen to each other's shows. At least I don't expect him to listen to my show. I really appreciate it if he does. And, you know, to the best of my ability, I'll check out his show, but I'm not going to lie to you guys and say I've listened to every episode of his podcast. Listened to some of it. Definitely heard myself on it, because I was there live on his show. But I don't know, there's something about creating this kind of audio art, and I've heard musicians say the same thing. Like, it's not easy for me to listen to my own voice, so I don't necessarily go and listen to my own podcast. I do edit it, so I have to listen to some of it, but I'm mostly editing for the quality of the sound and doing my best to find any mistakes or things that could be fixed, like ums and ahs, take those out and save you guys the headache to the best of my ability. I think those little things there make the show better and more pleasing to listen to. Just my opinion. You're not going to find that kind of editing in every show. Even really amazing shows don't do that level of precise editing that I try to achieve here on the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast. And you know what? In light of achieving things, that's what I'm talking about here. Achieving. I want to go further. I want to strive. I want this podcast to be one that you recommend to your friends and say, hey, this guy is crazier than me, and look at all the smart people that he's talked to, and maybe you could learn something from some of these conversations that they've had. And look at him, he's crazy, he's not perfect, but seems like he's on to something. I don't know, maybe I'm getting a big head. I did take gypsum, and apparently that's a side effect, but it did knock the pimple I had right off my face like I've never seen before. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, not endorsing any type of treatment, but that was strange. Either way, my goal here is to achieve. And part of that is consistently putting out episodes and maintaining a level of quality from each episode. I don't know. Not every episode hits the same points, and that's the best part, variety. But I want you guys to learn something new every time you listen to the show. That's the goal. And I think the best way for that to happen is for me to be striving to do my best as a host and ask the best questions, not talk over the guests, leave room for them to give the best answers, and also do my best to not repeat things that maybe you can hear the guests talk about on other shows, because I know, you're not just listening to my show. You definitely should be listening to great shows like the Higher Side Chats, Tinfoil Hat, Grimerica. So either way, long rant aside, me and Slick talked a little bit about this conversation with Ron, and then he shared some awesome stuff that he's been looking into, connections to Spider-Man and the Spider-Man series. Slick Dissident, he's been looking at all of the mythological symbolism that Marvel uses throughout their culture series. It's not just movies, it's comic books, it's TV shows, it's a whole compendium of different stories, and it's totally interesting for me as somebody who grew up with all that content to see the occult symbolism that was so pervasive throughout this material. So I hope you find that interesting, and I hope you enjoy. Again, show us some love on Patreon if you love the show. And one last thing, Tara and I, we are somewhat of artists, I guess you could say. I'm not trying to sound pretentious there. I hope you guys don't think that sounds pretentious, to be honest. I just like smoking weed and creating art, and I liked crystals, and I was a dirty hippie hanging out and smoking weed and wrapping up crystals, and I got really in touch with crystals and metal, and I like creating jewelry. It's fun for me. It's like a meditation practice, and after a couple years of doing it, I think people really started to resonate with the stuff I was creating. I have sold a couple of my pieces to different shops in the area, and I've sold a couple of them through social media. That was all before I did podcasts, and naturally I have a bunch that I still have, and I still make them. I made one a couple days ago, one with 16 different crystals in it. I thought that was cool. I'm always trying to push myself there. But if that's your thing, or if you like crystals, or if you know that vibes are important, guess what? These crystals are cleansed, they're charged. I leave them in the sun, cleanse them with sage. I wrap them up in a nice bag, and then I ship them off to you, whoever it is that buys these beautiful wraps made by me. Some of them take up to 3 or 4 days to finish, spending maybe like 4, 5, 6 hours at a time. So they're definitely works of art that I've put a lot of time into, and I think they're unique. You can find a lot of really complex wraps on social media and different Etsy shops, and definitely at festivals, which I'm not really one to go to, but people always told me I should have to sell these things, and I don't know. I've never seen anyone make a style quite like mine, and maybe that's because I just taught myself how to do it. And I think naturally when you teach yourself how to do something, you express yourself through that artwork. So if jewelry is your thing, check that out. And my lovely girlfriend Tara is a painter. She paints these really cool artworks. They're kind of sexual. They're definitely not something you would put up in your living room. I don't know, depending on what kind of living room you have. But it's not perverse in any way. They're very beautiful depictions of divine feminine goddesses. And I think they're, a perfect addition to your home if you want to bring that goddess energy into your life. So check those out if that sounds cool to you. You can find all of the links to that on our website, myfamilythinksimcrazy.com. You go to the shop. You could just type in myfamilythinksimcrazy.com/shop, or you can go down to the menu there, click shop, and check it out. We got all the pictures. Click on the picture that you like, takes you to the link, purchase it, and we will ship it to you as soon as possible, because this is what I'm doing, folks. This is what I'm doing. I work for a couple different clients, we'll say. Tinfoil Hat obviously is one of them, and several different other podcasts, and that's how I do this job, and thanks to the patrons and thanks to the Rockfin supporters, I'm able to do this with more time out of my day, because it is a time-consuming thing, and we do pay money for this. Not just me, but everybody who hosts their own podcast pays money, so I can't do it without your support. So thank you so much for listening. Definitely check out all those links in the description, and have a happy holidays. I hope everybody has a happy holidays and a happy new year. Maybe you're not listening to this in the present moment. Maybe you listen to this 4 or 5 years ahead of time. All of those things will probably still exist. Patreon and the shop and all that. So check it out, and have a happy holidays in the now. Enjoy this conversation with Gabriel. Peace. Yes, I can. What's up, bro? How you been?
Wonderful. Good to chat. I've been real good. How have you been?
Good. I wanted to invite you to join me for one of these extended outros that I've been doing. I don't know if you caught them, because I notice you do listen on Telegram, which I appreciate. Not a lot of people listen on Telegram, and it's one of the few ways to listen to the show live. It's not always consistent because the technology kind of sucks for me. Anytime I go and do something else on my phone, if a text comes up, it sometimes takes the live stream down, which then if I'm in the middle of a conversation with a guest, I'm too focused on that to go and set it back up again. So I haven't quite fixed all the kinks, but I noticed that you're in there and you hang tight with me when I do have it going, so I appreciate that. And that being said, I figured since you were one of the few people to listen to some of the 3 or 4 conversations I've had in the past day or two, you might be a great candidate to be in the outro. And given all the other conversations we've had, I'm sure it'll take us into all kinds of other weird spaces, but that's what we love here at the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast. So I hope you don't mind. We're rolling right into the recording without any pre-show, but here we are, brother. What do you think?
Sweet. Heck yeah. Keeping it candid.
Cool. That's like the strategy, and it's also the transparency thing too, because I want the folks who are patient enough to stick around to the outro to get to know me a little bit better as I grow as a host, because I completely realize oh wow, this is a whole new set of skills that some of them maybe I have overlapping abilities in from some of the previous jobs I've had as a farmer's market salesman and as a door-to-door, I don't even know what to call it. Canvasser is the word to call it. So I have some, communication skills, but really podcasting, especially the technical side, is all new to me. So I want to be as transparent as possible and, give people maybe a reason to support the show and see who I really am, and I feel like the best way to do that is with these extended outros where we are a little bit more candid and I connect with folks like you who, check out the show on a regular basis, which is really cool. And I appreciate you for being, a big supporter, because having folks in the Telegram chat, I'm like, okay, cool, we're going somewhere. And then when people drop out, I'm like, well, maybe we need to change topics. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't pay attention to it, but it sometimes is a helpful tool. So, but yeah, what are your thoughts on the past couple interviews? I'm not sure which outro. I guess it'll be based on which one you remember the best.
Oh, okay. Well, I think my favorite, because I listened to it twice already, was Peter Shampoo, for sure. Am I saying that right? Shampoo?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that one is just a gem. It's a treasure, and it's something that I knew I would have to listen to again just to glean all of, optimal value from it, because everything out of his mouth was like just jam-packed with highly valuable information.
And what's so cool about that? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, he was so casual about it. He's like dropping these little facts. And for me, I'm trying to keep my brain in my ears, but he's known these things for so long. They're just casual to him.
Yes. And in this synchronistic way, it was so cool how I even found out about Peter, just going about my journeys with Tara. We find this book, Sacred Stones, Spirit in the Stone, and talking about the Hammonasset ley line, which set me off on a whole set of, synchronicities that have been kind of documented now in the Your Handbook for the Apocalypse series, which you happen to be the first guest we ever had on. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate you jumping in there. That was an awesome episode.
That's awesome.
And
that was an honor for me as well.
But on the point about Peter, yeah, it was so cool to find somebody like himself who had so much to inform on, my personal region of the world where I was born and where I travel quite often, just going on little drives around New England and Connecticut. But also, like you said, a wealth of information, casual, very nonchalant, and with purpose too. I mean, it was so cool because this part wasn't in the book, what he's been up to lately, which is, activating that ancient, I forget, sky temple. I forget the exact way he put it, but yeah, it was fascinating. I definitely encourage folks to go back and listen to episode 108, but I was more referring to the Telegram live stream conversations you've listened to. In the past few days, I've interviewed Ron Weed. I've interviewed Chaz, paranormal researcher. I had Andreas Exodus back on the show for a third time. And then I also spoke with Matt Raymer, which I don't think that one was streamed on the Telegram. But yeah, do any of those stand out? Because I'm looking to record the outro for one of those episodes right here, right now. And I just figured whichever one was closest to your memory, we could maybe talk about a little bit, and then that'll lead way. Because I do want to comment a little bit on all of the episodes. I mean, they've been fascinating. Chaz of the Dead, we got into the B theory, psychonautic, high strangeness, the South American Nazis that he went and investigated himself. Ron Weed, we talked about his reptilian contact experience, his father, who was possibly playing a much larger role in naval intelligence than on paper might lead you to expect, and then a bunch of Gematria stuff, which I'm sure you are going to be all over once the visual side of it is out, because we put I think you were in the Telegram live for that. I don't know. Was that live on Rockfin? Did you see that? Did you catch that? Because yes, it is live on Rockfin, but the stuff that Ron had in his notebook was so interesting. Like I was not expecting that. And I will say his handwriting is very similar to mine, if not a little neater. So I don't know what that says about our consciousness, but we have almost the same handwriting.
Oh, that is interesting. I love when that happens. I think I'd go with Ron Weed, because you're right. When you said, you dropped my name, you were like, sounds like something Slick Dissident would be interested in. And it was lighting up my imagination for sure. Yeah, right. I was on the Telegram side.
Right.
And yeah, in that one, it is kind of a beautiful thing, it lends to this idea that's not original to me at all, but it kind of, I would encapsulate the idea it's a line from the book A Wrinkle in Time. And in The Wrinkle in Time, the line is, I think it's it's a verse from Rumi. That's actually the origin. It's from Rumi, where it says, the scar is the place where the light enters. Or maybe it's wound. I messed that all up. It's where the wound is the place where the light enters you. And that is what I believe, it's the idea of whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And, those of us who have, psychological, you could say scarring or just changes to our perception, eventually they become blessings in disguise. It becomes the silver lining. And I could definitely tell that, from his stories as a child. In the beginning of the interview was kind of, it just took a minute for the momentum to set in. And because he was, you were going into the depths of his psychology right off the bat, but then slowly with just, a little bit of comfort and getting used to everything, the insight started to streamline, and, there was order out of the chaos. And by the end of the interview, I even saw other people commenting. They were like, this is turning out really good. And it was, he has made a lot of sense out of what for many people would be hard to reconcile, you know?
Right, and you can't discount that alien encounter that he had as possibly being a factor. And, to point out the fact that he, he did make a lot of sense. I mean, I was surprised too. No, nothing against Ron, but I just, I don't get a lot of Instagram messages that lead to a good interview. I've had several great interviews from people that have reached out to me on Instagram, but that's like a small minority of the amount of Instagram messages that I get. Not that I get a whole ton, but yeah, I was surprised because, what I heard he's been on a couple podcasts. So, not exactly a seasoned guest like maybe we've had on the show before, but yeah, man, fascinating stuff. And it all came from a potential interaction with this peer of his in school who was associated with the DeMolay, which came up synchronistically for me because Walt Disney, was apparently a part of the DeMolay, and I talked about that earlier today with Matt from the Great Deception podcast, who was on the show as well. We talked a little bit about Disney, and Andreas even mentioned Disney a bit. But yeah, on the point of Ron Weed, he seemingly has deciphered this part of the Gematria code that I definitely, I know the Marty Leeds side of it, and I've known that for a while because I've had Marty Leeds' book for a while, and that was kind of the first I heard a lot of different people talking about Gematria, but then when I heard Marty Leeds, I was like, this guy seems more organized. So I bought his book, and yeah, it's not the same cipher as what Marty Leeds has, but I think that's because there's something inherent to that Freemasonic angle that Ron got that from. So I don't know much more than that. And again, I think people should check out the visual side of this episode more than any episode. Not really for the beginning, but yeah, the latter half of the conversation was, the majority he was showing us these notes from his notebook, and yeah, very interesting diagrams. He even had an EKG measured out gematrically, if that's even a word.
Oh, yeah, that's great. And he started to describe. I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but it was amazing to me. I was actually in the telegram, kind of giving a brief summary of the only, I've had a couple UFO experiences that are just, strange things in the sky that are hard to explain. I won't get into that, but I've only had one, paranormal ghost or spirit encounter. And it was when I was young, and I still write it off as a dream because I was in bed. It was in that liminal space between sleep and waking. And I was relating it to the Telegram group, and then he told his story, and it was incredibly on point with my story, which was a little jarring. It was a little surreal. And then he dropped a theory that I'm still holding on to, talking about the fact that green is a new color to the color spectrum, and that it is blue, that blue is the newest color in the color spectrum, and also green is right next to it. And because it's in the center of the Roy G. Biv, it has a liminal value. It's in the in-between space. And
right, that's interesting how that it emerged as the newest color from the center.
Yes.
Huh.
And that hit a note for me, because the only specter that I ever saw was it was like a green light body, and it was in a doorway. And this is a detail that I love about paranormal experiences. Like, if you go online and you watch, ghost hunters or things like that, something I've noticed, it's like an unspoken pattern from these researchers. They overlook the fact that there's a portal between them and the spirit of some sort or another, be it a window or a doorway or just a little frame from one room to the next in a house. There almost always is a subtle gate between them and what they're seeing. And I think it goes undervalued. And that has been a focus of my research lately, is the idea of liminal spaces, gateways, and even the fact that I'm not sure if I was awake or I was sleeping, So I was psychologically in the in-between space, in that twilight area of waking and sleeping. So that really hit a note for me, because it was almost like he was describing my own experience back to me.
Wow. Yeah, well, then I can't find a better person to have on the extended outro for this episode. Perfect. Glad you're here, buddy.
And I thought that was great, because his name's Ron Weed, and we all know about weed being very green, putting you in that liminal space. It even burns melatonin, which is what gets you, gives you that sleeping, walking dream state.
Well, if we want to even go on the Gematria angle even further, his father was named Walter, and that would give him the initials. I don't know his middle name, but that would give him the initials WW, which if you flip that on its side, you get 33. I mean, a W is pretty much just a 3 flipped on its side.
Awesome.
You
Yes.
know? And so, yeah, I think this episode, again, fascinating stuff, very much in sync with everything we talked about, but it is a little far from my memory because I did record it a while ago. Let me see what I wrote down. Maybe I can jog my. Oh, I didn't write anything about it yet. Well, here we go. Let's give people a little bit of behind the scenes. So the way I edit this episode and every episode of the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast is a 4 or 5 step process. And one of those processes is Descript, which takes the episode, turns it into a transcript for me, and then I can go in and basically read what was said and edit out parts of what was, what's in the podcast based on, what's in the paragraph. So it lines up the text with the audio file. So I could actually go back and read what was said in that conversation with Ron. But in the meantime, have you been doing anything recently with your research? I know we were talking about the Avenger movie series when you joined me on the show as a guest. What's been going on recently in your world?
Well, on my channel, I just did a 3-part run through that I just kind of had to get out of my system. It's kind of a personal de-occulting of the 9/11 events, with not too much focus on the main highlights. I think I kind of gave it a unique angle. I was focusing on how the North and the South Tower, they are the 2 pillars, Joachim and Boaz, and the chronology of which tower went down first is very significant. And I read it as an inversion or a reversing of the Unum Sanctum, the law, the decree, the papal bull from the Vatican, Unum Sanctum. It goes back to the biblical myth of, I'll try to keep this brief, the biblical story of Christ telling the apostles to sell their cloak to buy a sword. And if you read Unum Sanctum, which I highly recommend everybody does, it mandates that the spiritual is superior to the temporal. And when the 2 pillars went down, there was an inverting of that, and they put the spiritual underneath the temporal. And so right now we will probably be seeing, the theory is that there will be a depreciation of the spiritual and an overvaluing of the temporal. And it's kind of a hard subject to keep a neutral perspective on, it's hard to keep your emotions out of the conversation. But you could say that the majority of the population, if the spell worked, a majority of the population is going to take the poke because they don't value the spiritual price. And their perspective right now has a very temporal focus. And so, that's kind of the brief cliff notes of what I got into. But I do have something on the Avengers that I was rapping with some of the guys with Rob B in your Telegram group.
Yeah, shout out to Rob. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, man. He and I were grooving on taking some of the characters from the Avengers stories and giving them actual historical correspondence to movers and shakers of the world. And, this all kind of started with my theory that Spider-Man is, Peter Parker and Spider-Man have a very powerful correspondence to Carl Jung and Philemon.
Can you elaborate on who Philemon is for maybe people who don't know?
Yes. Philemon is the daemon of Carl Jung, and predates Carl Jung. Philemon is actually a spirit. Like when they say the Bible was written in the spirit of goodwill and betterment of man. Well, Philemon is the spirit of certain writings throughout history, and it goes back quite some ways. He kind of, the spirit of Philemon can be found in many writings throughout history. And I think Carl Jung tapped into the spirit of that gnosis and was in communication with it. And it became like his muse or the spirit, his daemon that he would communicate with. Almost like, I think of it as like I guess from a Christian lens, a lot of people would say you're inviting a spirit to, to give you advice. It's almost got a Faustian Mephistopheles spin to it from a certain lens. But when you look at it through Carl Jung's, through his method, it's not as nefarious as it seems, And the fact that Philemon was actually a spirit of some of the biblical writings. So it is, to some degree, a church-sanctioned stream of gnosis in a certain light. So, was that helpful at all?
I mean, if it's not helpful to me, it could be helpful to someone. I mean, I might not have a response, but it's not. No, I definitely think you elaborated on the question of who is Philemon. I just find it really fascinating that was something that had been basically, in this kind of, I mean, this is a theme in a book that I talk a lot about, the secret history of the world. And they don't really blame it on, they don't go into Philemon much more than to just say that that's what Jung was in touch with. But they do point out many different people throughout history who seem to have these relationships, close relationships with otherworldly entities. They're not saying that each entity is part of the same group or anything like that, but it's more a comment on the relationship between human beings and the other world, which is endlessly fascinating.
Yes. And we do, our superheroes, that's something that is instilled in us at a young age with these comic books, is that even our superheroes have what they call, in a more socially acceptable light, they call it an alter ego, and so they have their mundane persona, but then they put on their spandex and they become this higher self.
Right.
And so through that line of reasoning, it was Spider-Man and Philemon that really tipped the scales for me on this idea. I'll just substantiate it a little more, because Spider-Man is gifted a pair of glasses in one of the most recent installments of Spider-Man. In the glasses, the name of the glasses is Edith, EDITH, and that stands for Even Dead, I'm the Hero. And that is a joke from Tony Stark. Tony Stark is telling him, even though I'm dead, you're still going to need me. So here's these glasses that are going to give you this special vision to see through, like they live glasses, and you can see through the illusion of the world. Wow. Well, that's a powerful signal to me to look to Carl Jung, because one of his acolytes in actual history was Edith Rockefeller. And Edith Rockefeller went out of her way to study under Carl Jung for an extended period of time, and she became a student of his, and she sponsored the translating of his writing into many languages. And so you could say Edith became the decoder glasses for the world to see the mind of Carl Jung.
Wow.
And so that was my keystone. That was my initiation into this idea that if Spider-Man could actually have a historical counterpart, a factual real-world counterpart, what other characters can I substantiate from the Avengers series with real historical factual personas? And so I got a quick list if you want to hear it.
Yeah, please. Before you go into it, though, I just want to point out, if people again go to the visual version of the show and check it out, you might notice that when Ron Weed told us that he was bit by a spider when he was a kid, I started laughing so hard, but I don't want to be rude, and I didn't want to make fun of him or anything or make it seem that way, because I don't feel that way. He's a great guy, and I'm really grateful that he joined us on the show. But oh man, it was so funny. It's all the more funny when you have to hold in your laughter. So maybe that made it funnier. But here, I'm just gonna play a little clip for people if they forgot. Let's see if you could hear this. Let me know. Hold on. Out of it. So you literally fell down the rabbit hole, it sounds like.
Down the rabbit hole.
But take me back to this first part, though. So was there a physical well in the yard that possibly you actually fell down and something happened in between that memory and the memory that you just described on the couch?
Oh, no, nothing like that. But I guess when I was around 3, they said I got bit by a spider or something like that, a poisonous spider.
Oh, man. That was too funny. Did you hear that?
That is awesome. That is so awesome.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. Yeah, Ron, thank you so much. Shout out to you, buddy. But yeah, that is an odd synchronicity to bring it all back together.
Yes, very powerful.
So Spider-Man got you into this, and that's a potent one, because the big thing you hear, I mean, at least I've heard it in conspiracy realm a couple of times, is with great knowledge comes great responsibility. That seems to be a nod to that when you hear that in the Spider-Man movie, at least.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it sometimes I'm not sure what to do with all this, but I just take it in, process it, and then push it back out and let the world deal with it if they decide to take it or leave it, But it's a beautiful way to see things. And I think Spider-Man came up a couple times in that conversation, and it's pretty powerful. And, Spider-Man has that precognitive ability, the spidey senses. And that's something that can be developed. And once it's developed, it makes you like a vessel for inspiration, and these ideas and beautiful things come to you, and you get a little tingling feeling that there's more to it, and you start following it. And the next thing you know, you've got something worth sharing.
Yeah, I agree.
So you want to hear my list here? It's pretty fun.
Please, yeah, let us hear it.
So I think that Dr. Octavius, if Spider-Man is young, because he's the youngest Avenger, for one. I mean, there's all these jokes like built into these archetypes. He's the youngest Avenger. Carl Jung's focus was on the web, the collective web of consciousness. Also, Peter Parker studies the falling arc of an object, and Carl Jung studies the archetypes of consciousness.
Right.
So,
wow.
So from Spider-Man, we can draw a line to Dr. Octavius, fitting the role of Sigmund Freud.
Huh.
And because Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud's relationship was so interdependent, much like Peter Parker's relationship with Dr. Octavius, and in fact, Doc Ock, he built up this powerful technology and was like a mentor to Peter Parker in an incredibly similar way to how Freud was a mentor to Peter Parker. And so that's one of them. And building out from there, I think that Nick Fury is Alan Dulles.
That would make sense.
Because yes,
the Punisher.
Because yes, and then I put Tony Stark in as Rockefeller, as John D. Rockefeller, because Tony Stark is he's a philanthropist. He's making contracts with MIT, and Rockefeller had a lot to do with MIT. And Rockefeller Industries just had a lawsuit with MIT regarding CRISPR technologies, and the fate of the world was probably altered by that lawsuit. Pretty powerful little correspondence there. So I've got Tony Stark as J.D. Rockefeller. And I was talking with Rob. I think we could put the Incredible Hulk. I think we could fit him in with Howard Hughes.
Okay.
Yeah. Howard Hughes was interested in making like the largest aircraft imaginable. And that's kind of a funny trope with the Hulk, is he never fits in anything. He's too big for his own good. He's too big for his own shoes. But also, Bruce Banner has these periods of going into seclusion. He becomes a recluse at certain phases in his life. And the Hulk, in I think in the Thor #3, the Hulk is like run away from the world, and he's living in a apartment, in a penthouse apartment, and Thor has to go and talk him out of his lavish life in the penthouse apartment, much like Howard Hughes was a recluse in his apartment building. And then my last one here, in this one, I'm really stretching it. I'm not 100% sold on it, but it is tentatively, I've put Thor in as Friedrich Nietzsche. And part of the reason I did that is because they always talk about Nietzsche using a hammer to smash paradigms and to crush people's old preconceptions. And that's like a running metaphor with Nietzsche, is that he uses a Thor to crush your old ideas. So that's my list right now.
I love it. Yeah, I definitely think that deserves a whole episode. We ought to save the rest of it for when you get it all completed. Maybe have you back on and go into that a little further. I think that's really cool, man. Yeah,
right on.
Even what Ron told me in the Instagram kind of chat was that his father, and he did mention it. So Smoking Aces 2, he says the character in Smoking Aces 2 that's like a desk jockey seeming guy who ends up being like a big pin in the whole scheme, the whole, whatever the espionage group that they're portraying. And he potentially was modeled after this dude's father. So I don't know how true that is, but all respect to Ron for sharing that on the show. I like to let the listeners be the judge. It could be all bogus, it could be true. We don't claim to know here. This is the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast. And I think he actually said that his family doesn't, they do think he's crazy. Sorry. Yes, they do. Let me check the transcript here, folks. Yeah, they think he's crazy.
Nice.
Can't believe I forgot that. No, but anyways, just joking. Thank you, brother, for being here, Gabriel. I always pause because I switch from calling you Slick Dissident to Gabriel on and off, but I don't think I've given you a spirit animal name yet, and you deserve one since you've been on the show as many times as you have, and you're a big part of the the Telegram group, and another really huge part of the Telegram group who already got a shout out today, Rob. He's listening. We're going to give him a spirit animal name as well here in the outro. And I pulled a card while we were talking, and it was the dragon card. So I don't know what that says about what we were just talking about, but that's the kind of energy we were putting out, maybe. But here we go. We're gonna go to the cards. No, don't hesitate. You could talk. This is a silent part for me. I'm just shuffling.
Well, dragons are often green.
Yes, that's exactly. I mean, the card is very green.
Yeah.
All right.
That's sweet.
So, Gabriel. Oh, I pulled the whale card. The whales come up a couple times in the recent few draws. So,
nice.
Whale energy. And then we have, let's see, the quality comes from this other deck. Let's see. The whirling rainbow card, which represents unity and wholeness. So you are the whirling whale, my friend.
I love it. There's a WW.
Exactly. Wow. I love that. I go for that all the time, just naturally, because I think phrases that match up like that just sound cooler. But yeah, whirling whale is beautiful. I love that as a spirit animal for you. I don't know what it means to you. Sometimes I feel a little nervous about what this animal card deck will bring, because there are not flattering animals in here all the time. We could have picked worm. We could have picked firefly. We could have picked mouse, things that people generally maybe don't think of as their spirit animal. But that's the fun of it too, is like maybe this animal might have a synchronistic effect on you somehow, and you didn't realize it until this card got pulled. Or you're, someone like Ron from New England who got the Cosmic Egg card, which, I mean, that's just badass. I mean, that's just a cool card.
Yeah. Nice. That's great. So, yeah. And, something else he was talking about, and I always love to point out how whenever you get alliteration, like a WW, you can oftentimes use reduced ordinal gematria to get a magical square. And so a WW would be a 5x5 in reduced ordinal, which is a magical square of Mars.
Right.
Which that came up in the conversation with him too, magic squares.
Yeah.
That's great.
No. I did not go over my head, but it's, it's a lot easier to talk about when you have the visuals in front of you. But yeah, definitely, interesting stuff. I feel like I've done that for a while now, and it's never led me very far because I don't stick with the, and I'm really impressed by like the lengths people can go to seemingly find meaning in these numbers. And I'm not doubting the meaning, but I'm just like, I'm sort of in marvel of it, which is a funny reference to what we were just talking about. But anyways, we got another spirit animal name to give. And I also want to give a shout out to Dan Danunaki, who's in the Telegram very often. We'll give him a spirit animal name as well. Why not? So we got some cards to pull. I got boom. We're gonna pull. I'm just gonna pull them without looking at them, and we'll reveal them one at a time to make this nice and sweet and meaningful. All right. Cool. So, anyways, filling in the dead air, we got 3 animal names to give. So shout out to Rob B. You are, I love this. You got the Fox card and the Sundance card. So that means you're the Sundance Fox. That's very cool.
Great.
Very cool.
Yes,
card.
It seems very fitting. From what I know, that's a good one for him.
I love it. All right. And then next up, I said I would give a spirit animal name to Dan because he's in the Telegram chat. Dan, you are a lamb, and we have the powwow card, which represents sharing and quickening. So you are the powwow lamb, Dan.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
And then last but not least, Matt Black is someone who I said I would give a spirit animal name to, although they're not a patron. They reached out and they said, hey, I love your show. I love what you're doing. I'm going to give you $1 for every episode you've done. So he gave me a pretty nice little gift there via PayPal. So if anybody wants to be so kind and do something like that for the holidays, I appreciate you. I should also say that Rob was also very generous and gave me a really awesome gift. So I'm glad you got that badass name there, Sundance Fox. Now, Matt Black, I hate to say it, but I don't know if I can give you the same respect that I can a name like Sundance Fox, because your name is the Truth Unicorn. The Truth Unicorn. So I don't know. I mean, maybe, I mean, Matt, maybe you like it, maybe you don't. I don't know. I wouldn't like the unicorn thing, but it's in the animal deck, so here it is, folks. You are the Truth Unicorn. You got the arrow card, which represents truth as protection. So I think that, or the arrow unicorn, but I feel like Truth Unicorn just sounds great. Yeah. So here we are, live. There's no cutting it out. Sometimes when that happens, I'll be honest, if I pull a card name that's like really, not flattering, I have edited out in the past, but I feel like that might be a disservice because the card decks might have medicine in them. So Matt, even though a unicorn might not be your ideal spirit animal name, you have to take what the cards deal. I don't know the proper phrase there, but there's a phrase there somewhere. Anyways, this has been a fun outro. Thank you so much for joining me, brother. Is there anywhere people can go to follow up with you, your YouTube channel, right? Is there anything else you got going on, places people can follow up with you?
Well, yeah, my personal work is on Slick Dissident on YouTube, but I'm also oftentimes, pretty regularly nowadays, on the Weaving Spiders Welcome. We do a thing on Saturday nights. It goes long, so pack your lunch. Take a nap beforehand. And we're also doing Weaving Spiders. We're doing something called Flow State on Wednesday nights, where we do shared reading and art projects. And that is right after the other show. I want to give a big shout out for Chance Garton and his Innerverse podcast, and also Vibrant, which he does on Wednesdays. Let's see, I think Innerverse is, I'm not sure his full schedule, but I think it's like Mondays and Wednesdays he's on. And the Innerverse is a Wednesday thing, and then we do the Flow State right afterwards. So everybody come get some.
Right on. Yeah, I'll be on Vibrant in the new year. I know Chance and I have that scheduled, so stay tuned for that, and follow up with Slick Dissident in all the places. Thank you so much for listening to this complex edition of the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast. That's what we're doing here, folks. You probably didn't expect it, but that's right. 3 hours of My Family Thinks I'm Crazy content. That's the goal for every episode. I don't know if we'll make it there, but as long as we're over the 2-hour mark, I'm happy. So anyways, take it easy and enjoy the moment wherever you are in the now.